Yeah. Gang.
Fuck, nigga.
Young Draco,
Only
nigga.
power to me.
Fuck wrong with you? Pussy ass nigga.
Lame man.
Lame ass nigga.
Don't Draco, nigga. Came straight out the trench.
Where you cap, boy?
Know that. Gang.
On my mama, nigga.
Yeah.
Most of these niggas be phony. Pull on your block and I spray this shit up more lonely. Back in the trap, I was eating bologna. Walk in the club with 100K cash on it. New Lambo, do the dash on it. Bitch, baby mama, then I splash on it. In the Lambo like the flash on it. The roller hit hard, the flash ain't even on it. Yeah. I'm riding in the land with the gas, I ain't even on it. Yeah. Bad bitch, I ain't even throw no cash on it. Draco sitting in my lap with 100 rounds on it.
Draco.
Tell me who the fuck want it? Pull up, nigga, then I let y'all pop. We send shots till I see you about to drop. Young Draco, nigga, you know I'm hot. Stand in the kitchen and beat up the pot. Getting money like me, nigga, I think not. I hop in the lamb and I drop out the top. I walk in the Louis, I'm spinning the guap. Walk in the strip club and I throw guap. Yeah, pussy ass, lame ass, cap, rap, nigga. When I see you in the streets, you know you get slapped, nigga. You a fuck boy, and you know you wet, nigga. AK-47 came with the shoulder strap, nigga. Young Draco, dump a nigga body in a river. Right there with the AK. You know I'ma spray my nigga. Tryna ride, don't do that, my nigga. I pop out that cup with my finger on trigger. Yo, Draco, nigga, you knowin' that nigga. Smoking no gas, fucking your sister. Hey, I'm around town in a Lambo. Two choppers on me like Rambo. Pop out that cut and I shoot the shit up. I got ammo. Put on your block with a 2-3 spray with the heat. Yo, Draco, nigga got bricks in the Jeep. Yo, Draco, nigga make money and sleep. 2-3 bullets, they spray out the street. 2-3 bullets, they spray up your house. Frying in forms I can't pronounce. Fucking your bitch, then kicking her out. Pop out the cup, put a stick in your mouth. Yeah, I Gucci the ceiling, but Louis the couch. On your Draco, nigga, I'm never.
All right, y'all. Welcome to the podcast. Today we're going to talk about a few topics that we have on hand. The first topic we're going to discuss is Palestine. Then we're going to get into some other not so serious news, and then divulge in some critique of modern modern shows and stuff like that. So if you'll thanks for joining us as we'll get started. We're going to talk about the recent US airdrop of food aid in Palestine, what we think about it, how we thought it went down. Was it good? Was it bad? Yeah, we'll start there.
So I'm gonna give my opinion about this. So it's very. We all agree. I don't even need to ask. As it's very hypocritical of the same regime that helped Israel to genocide Palestinians is now providing aid with the intent of just doing like saying, "Oh, we did our best." If so, the Palestine people would perish, and I hope not. With the intent of saying, we did this, we did our best. We weren't part of this genocidal campaign, and some might say that they're trying to like help them, like they're trying to give them food, don't criticize it because they're not getting food from other parts, and they need this food, and those are fair criticisms. But there is the issue that this genocide is still continuing to happen. There is Palestinians being displaced every day, losing homes. I would say, Rafiq, how much of the Palestinians have been displaced from their homes? Roughly.
All 2 million.
All 2 million.
All 2 million.
So then nobody got homes.
Mm-mm.
So as you can see, nobody got homes. They released videos of like a convoy being like, I guess, quote unquote, ambushed by Palestinians. But if you're hungry, you don't got food, what the fuck are you gonna do? You want to be first in line. So they were saying like, oh, we're gonna send drones to drop supplies of food into Palestine. And how is that more effective? That seems to me more dangerous to me in many respects, because people are going to be fighting over food at this point. At the point that they're in the brink of like despair. No, they're already like gone past despair,
They're beyond that.
and they're still like holding their what's it called, their what's it anyways, they're still holding like their composure to a certain extent, and their uh struggle, the advancement of the Palestine struggle. But
Let me jump in if I can.
go ahead.
Okay. So going over the numbers, all 2 million have been displaced. There is a record total of 80% of all residential housing has been either completely destroyed or partially destroyed. There is no functioning hospitals or schools. There is maybe 2 functioning schools left. The last hospital is still heavily damaged. Even the UN facilities are largely in unuse because they don't have the proper electricity or running water or supplies. Most of the population has been forced out into Rafah, which is the area of the Gaza Strip that's alongside the Egyptian border. And most of the killings were committed alongside the so-called evacuation route, the route that the Israelis said was the safe zone. Most of the slaughter has been of civilian lives was committed on that road, on that pathway. The Palestinian people have reached a level of such extreme circumstances that children as young as 5 are now reporting to Doctors Without Borders, the international doctor group, that they would prefer to be dead. Um, but they still don't want to leave because they are firmly tied to their land. There was videos of children as young as 13 or so who were screaming at the tower on the border of Egypt to the Egyptian soldiers who were overlooking the situation, screaming at them to give them their guns so that they could fight. They weren't begging to cross the border. Some, of course, are always going to be that way, but quite a lot of the Palestinians don't want to leave because they know what's going to happen. They're going to lose their land completely, and it will be completely redeveloped into Zionist settlements. This started because of and I refer to it always because many people don't know about a document that was formalized by the Israeli government after 1948 Nakba, where it said that if the Palestinian territories are ever to create a proper functioning resistance against the Israeli government, they must be completely forced from all of the lands, and the lands must be seized by the Israeli government. So, what they are doing is they're executing that very plan because they want to make sure they solidify no opposition within the territories that they have stolen. Yeah. My take on this is that I think it's I think Azazel is right in that when like it's almost like, I don't want to say too little too late. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good and all that stuff, or and better late than never. But at this time, it feels like, yeah, this could have been done way sooner. to a greater extent, and to the point. Yeah, at this point, Joe Biden is to the right of hell, even Reagan, when it comes to Israel, because there was an incident some years back, when Reagan was in office, and then Prime Minister and Reagan called the then Prime Minister, and he was so shocked by what happened that he called him and said, like, "Yo, cut this shit out." And the Prime Minister at that time was like, "Oh, like they stopped what they were doing. They stopped, they stopped hurting Palestinians." Of course, in the long run, that was just, a brief pause in what's been a campaign of decades of terror. But it's no less poignant that the current man in office, who loves to profess that he is a Zionist, as though that's anything to be proud of whatsoever, um, is yeah to the right of is to the right of Republicans' favorite Republican, Reagan. Um, I'm glad the Palestinians are getting aid. But what they need more than aid is their land back, like point blank, period. Like they need, but because they're, um, but because they're, because the Israelis are supported by the largest imperialist actor in the world, that's I feel that's never going to happen. And I think even the threat of um, uh, call it what you want, justice at the hands of the ICJ, or um, the threat of being roped in with the Israelis for complicity in war crimes is maybe getting to them, and maybe that's why they've, on top of the multitude of other movements that are clearly telling Biden, "Hey, if you keep this shit up, like forget winning the election. You're just like, this is going to end poorly for you, uh, or poorly in a way that matters to you." The Palestinians on either whatever side you fall on it, though, the ones who are getting the most, getting the worst end of the shit end of the stick are the Palestinians, and that's just, I feel that goes without saying here.
The I want to say it's pretty bad when you are significantly more bloodthirsty and genocidal than Reagan himself. And
The Nazis too.
yeah, and even that, the it's very clear that the absolute decay of American politics in the modern era has pushed the American establishment even significantly further right than it probably has ever been in a good proportion of its history. But this type of, and the fact that they're going up and beyond to try to protect this genocide of the Gazans, the Palestinian people, is really starting to say something as well. They are going out of their way to not only dox and attack anybody who opposes it, but to push laws that even try to suppress the speaking of truth, even when it comes down to corporations pushing policies to suppress the
Mm-hmm.
news getting out. the What we are seeing is something unlike we've probably ever have seen, because this is not just your average genocide. Trust me, there's been genocides that have been significantly worse. But the difference between those to now is, when the news broke loose that there was a genocide going on in the past, there was at least significantly more stand up, and that was largely because the people didn't have much to distract themselves like they do now. Most people are so cowardly and doing anything they can to, not act like they're involved. And I mean, we understand that well when it comes down to these so-called apoliticals and these people who don't have any concern for anything other than themselves. When you tell them about world events, they're like, "Oh, I don't talk politics. I don't want to hear it." That kind of stuff. That's cowardice. That's lazy. That's useless to majority of the world. They didn't really have that so much in the past. There was more reason to let it stew in their minds. But now they can't really ignore it because it's live streamed. It's everywhere. You can't go to any social media without it getting pushed into your face, which is probably for the best because I don't support the idea of expecting people to just come to the right conclusions of their own free will or of their own morality because many people don't have a morality. They don't have a moral compass. You have to get people to pick their sides by forcing it in their face. And that is what will tell us who our allies are and who our enemies are.
Yeah. The thing with Zionists, we see their tactics. One of the things being, oh, where is the Nakba documented? Where is Palestine ever been documented? Where there's very, even from liberal media, that show that there was a Palestine, there was a Nakba, and then when we mentioned the Nakba, they're like, oh, the October 7th attack because it's the most recent thing. I'm gonna tell you straight up, that's karma, bitch. Like that's what you get. Like straight up, that's what you get. Like what do you expect when you oppress people, when you control their food, electricity, their shelter, and you barely give them any of those, and then you fucking bomb them? Like what do you expect is gonna come out of that? Like these Zionists who were terrorists in the beginning in the Nakba and took the land that even the land that they partitioned with the United Nations, which is still like egregious. They still took the land that was supposed to be the Palestine land, and expanded them and created the Gaza Strip. And for anybody hearing this, the Zionists karma's gonna come back, especially here in the States, because you're not gonna get away with that shit. You literally put these people to the point that they're displaced. They have no home. They have like barely. They have no food, no water. They're desperate as fuck. Karma's gonna get you. So I'll just leave it at that.
I want to touch on to that as well. I want to add into that actually. When you can, because there's been plenty of video evidence to prove not only the Nakba was horrific and that it did happen, but also there is testimonies from former soldiers who participated in the Nakba itself. These Zionists who boasted about killing civilians, shooting children, raping teenage women, and so on and so forth. How they burned people alive, how they burned down houses, how they pushed out entire villages at gunpoint, took their clothing, took their silver and possessions. They did the most horrendous shit that is only comparable to what the SS did when they started rounding up Jews. I don't care whatever Zionists on this planet wants to say that's an unfair comparison because we were subject to that. I don't care. You don't get any kind of privilege to commit the same evils on another people just because it happened to you. And what's worse is the violence and that destruction that happened. That was 700,000 Palestinians forced from town to town into small little areas that would later, become even smaller after the 6 Day War. And what's even worse, before the Nakba, the goals of the Zionist movement were very clear with the terrorist organization Irgun, the organization whose literal symbol was the Great Israel Map, which is the end project of all of the Zionist movement, which is to take over basically the entire Middle East with a hand holding a gun. They clearly stated, not only in their symbol but even in their works, their written propaganda literature, that they were going to take Palestine because it was theirs. And the Palestinian people were subject to 60 different terrorist operations that happened within their region until the Six Day War happened, and Irgun was absorbed into the IDF. I have no mercy, no love, no care, and especially no concern for the humanity or interests of any Zionist, be them the most far right or be them the most liberal. If you side with the Zionist movement, you are no different from the SS soldiers who shot Jews in the fucking street.
So
Absolutely.
to add to that, I want to make it clear to the listeners: Zionism is not an ethnicity. It is not a religion. It is a political movement. A political movement that is not just Jewish people, but of all types of people, even some Arab people. But if you're calling us, or at least me, from my comments, an anti-Semite, then fucking yeah, I'm a fucking anti-Semite because I don't fucking like Zionists, bro. Like for real.
Which is ironic considering that you're from Bethlehem.
Yeah, and to piggyback onto that, it's like people like me, when we're often taught the lessons about, don't be anti-Semitic, don't be don't learn all these tropes about all these old tropes about the Jews and stuff like that. That's all well and good. Yes, we absolutely should know that. But I think the framing of that often tends to be Semitic just means Jewish, but Semitic also means Semitic. The dictionary definition is people who speak like Arabic and Hebrew and like all the Abrahamic languages and religions. So if you're like pro, for example, if you're a Zionist, you're like it's not like you're really the anti-Semite here. We're here on this podcast, at least I can speak for myself. I am pro-Jewish, anti-Zionist. That means I like people are free to practice. In my mind, people are free to practice whatever religion they feel like they want. That's their right and their choice to do so. But it cannot and will not be at the expense of other people, as Zionists are so often accustomed to doing. In fact, the Zionist League has more. As though it needs any more debunking, the Zionist League in the U.S. has more Christian, evangelical Christian members than there are Jews in the world. Like that's how many Zionists, or that's how many evangelicals there are. That's how few Jewish people. That's how few Jewish people actually support this cause. In fact, a lot of Jewish youth, and like from millennials on down, and some Gen Xers, there's a wide range of it, will tell you like, yeah, I learned the lesson of never again means never again for everybody. Like they don't want Palestinians to be genocided. They don't want Black people to be genocided. They don't want anybody to be genocided. Genocide should be a thing of the past, even though we know full and well it still happens in other parts of this world outside of our purview. But they will tell you, yeah, when I was taught, when they were taught, never again means now, they mean it. They took that and ran with it appropriately and said, this means for nobody. Like no one should be genocided, not Jews, not anybody. Versus the Zionists will say, as I've seen social media posts backing this up, like never again means now, never again means only for Jewish people. And that itself is, to me, the most heinous thought, right? It's like, oh no, yeah, it reeks of privilege, and to me it just screams, oh no, I'm going to imbibe all the privilege that is due to me for being, white European, uh, and take all the basically cry bullying other people into saying like, no, you have to support us because we were genocided in the past. It's like you don't even treat your survivors well. For those who are unfamiliar, and this will be the last of it, um, in Israel there are Holocaust survivors, and among them, and they live among the population, and they're treated poorly, mostly because they've adopted the fascist. The Israeli people adopted the fascist mindset of like, oh, they were weak Jewish people. Like, we have to be strong Jewish people so that we don't become like these Holocaust, like, these basically untermensch. Um, so we have to be strong, and we have to be like, we have to fight against this so that we don't end up like these weak, pathetic people. And it's like, no, that's not at all what happened. And and worse off, it's like you're bringing retribution against the people who had nothing to do with it. That's this most maddening thing about all of this. If any Zionist can point to me in history what the Palestinians had to do with World War II and encouraging or sparking the Holocaust, like, please let me know. I would love to know. And and then even then you could like semi justify the things that were going on, but the truth is you can't. The Palestinians had nothing to do with the Holocaust. If you guys want a place to live, fucking take over like Berlin or some parts of Germany. Like, go take over their land. If anybody owes you anything, it's the Germans. And hell, and parts of New York. You know, um, so yeah, it's heinous to me. The whole thing just reeks of to say privilege is an understatement, but it's colonialism at its core.
I just love how when we address these very topics like you just did, we seem to find way too much terrifying parallels between Zionism and Nazism. Just like you stated, this new fascist mentality of, oh, they were weak Jews, we have to be strong Jews. That's very similar to what you were saying with the concept of how Nazism promoted the idea of the weak European versus the strong European, the weak white man versus the strong Aryan. That and it goes even further to the other stuff as well. When we talk about this chosen people, no different from the so-called superior race. When it comes down to birthright to Israel and the old German phrase of blood and soil, when it comes down to the what the Zionists have been saying, especially as of now, we need to get rid of the Palestinians so we can secure our safety. No different from the old German, we got to get rid of the Jews so we can secure the safety of Germany. This is a fascist ideology, and anyone who dares to say otherwise, I want you to prove to me otherwise, because I'm not an idiot. I can see the parallels. I know their ideology well, and it functions very similar to Nazism. But even to that, right? The the Zionist movement, and this is the thing. Yes, there may have been members of Palestine, but there was of almost anywhere, right? There was members of India. There was members of the United States, of Britain, that were pro-Nazi German. There was members who were like this, but you know how many more actually helped them? There was Muslims who were making fake IDs for Jews so they could get out of Europe during World War II. There was the one when the Zionist organization signed a pact with Hitler called the Havara Agreement, where they would ship German goods to Palestine so that they could make a commission when all of the Jewish organizations around the world were doing a boycott against Germany for anti-Semitism. The Palestinians welcomed those Jews because they deported 60,000 Jews to Palestine. They welcomed those Jews because they didn't want them to face anti-Semitism. They didn't realize that these people were involved with the Zionist organization, and they didn't realize what the Zionist organization's goals was for Palestine when they sent them there.
Yeah. It's kind of like you got to know who your friends are, but you got to keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. And to put a finer point on it, you will have a hard time finding any Israeli or any IDF or IOF soldier who's not a fascist. In fact, there was a BBC 3 or 4 interview where they interviewed a female member of the IOF, and she openly stated, like laughing as she went about it, saying like, yeah, I think I'm fascist, and I think we should be open about that. I think that basically saying whatever the definition of fascist is, I'm it, and I'm proud of that fact. She went on to chuckle and laugh, and it was treated with this kind of like, I was not too sure about the lady's words, but I wanted to know more. And it's like, what are you not sure about, lady? Like she's telling you she's a fascist. Like, you're a journalist, so you can't exactly put one between the eyes. But shit. There's a time and place for that. And
If they're wearing a Nazi uniform, I'm pretty sure it's a fucking Nazi.
yeah, exactly. We're not dealing with Teletubbies here. It's fucking. This is the new age Nazis. Like, anybody who says different is at this point in the juncture. Anyone who says different is you're just committed to ignorance, and it's and I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's malevolent. It's a malevolent commitment to ignorance, and with all the information out there, there's no excuse for it. There really isn't. If you cared, you would be petitioning your government to stop giving Israel money, stop giving Ukraine money. There's so much shit that needs to be settled here at home in the U.S. Before we even send a dime overseas. In fact, I'll switch it up. I'll say, let's the relationship of donations to recipients, let's make it the inverse, right? All the money that we send to Israel, let's send it to UNRWA and the Palestinians, and whatever the paltry sum that we send the Palestinians every year, let's send that to Israel and see how long that state stands on its feet.
I'll say this. Actually, I'll say this instead. How about this? Instead of sending all this money to Ukraine and Israel, instead of taking it from the American taxpayer, the people who are already dealing with the worst inflation and the worst kind of living conditions that we have probably had ever, or at least for a very long time, take it from your own paycheck. Take it from your own little corporate fucking bills that they keep giving you so that you can run your campaigns and lie to the public and put in policies that don't help us. Take it from your own salary. Take it from your own net worth, instead of having to force us to pay it.
Take it from Nancy Pelosi's
exactly.
stock portfolio.
Take it from your own bank accounts if you care so much about these worthless states and these worthless, monstrous governments, instead of forcing us to have to fit the bill. Because you keep doing that, and you keep taking all this money away from the American populace, you're going to get to a point where people can't feed themselves, and no government outside of the entire world at this point is ignorant enough of history to understand. You make your population hungry, they're going to revolt. You're gonna piss off your populace to a point of boiling point.
Yeah, like Nancy Pelosi is a whole other subject we'll talk about in another podcast because that's just fucking crazy how much money she fucking made. Um, you know, one of the things that is very apparent as well is that the October 7th attacks, it was celebrated by the Israelis because it gave them the tool to basically ask for aid and create the genocide of the Palestinians. If we look at dialectical materialism, what they're trying to basically do with the material conditions that the Palestinians have at the current moment, birth uh, the PLO, that birthed the PFLP, that birthed the DFLP, that birthed Hamas. As the old dies, the new comes about. But at the same time, like fucking the Zionists are trying to basically eradicate the Palestinians, right? And birth the nation of the greater Israel, which they're trying to establish uh, in the Middle Eastern. And this is basically what's happening. This is I don't know what's gonna happen to the point that when are we gonna say like it's time to take up arms? It's time to stop this shit. Like it's something it's a genocide happening in our fucking presence. We all said like with the Holocaust as we were kids. I believe we all said this. Like we wouldn't have allowed this if we were back in those days. So
Right.
the fact that this is happening, and there are many protests going on. There's many like AIDS going on. And there's still like Palestinian people like dying, not just from bombs, from starvation, all that stuff, in order to create the greater Israel. And I'll leave this to you to explain what covers the greater Israel exactly.
So, the Greater Israel is a project that they have been trying to enact for, I think, honestly, ever since the Zionist movement started. But essentially, what it is they believe that Israel's original land, which historically we all know is not true, but they think the original land that truly belongs, the so-called blessed land that truly belongs to the Israelis, is the territory from West Egypt all the way to the Iranian border, including territories of northern Saudi Arabia up to essentially half of what is Syria. That territory, which basically encompasses the grand majority of the Middle East, and I mean Middle East as in, not including, North Africa or Central Asia. This is what they say is apparently to them the Greater Israel Project, and they are so center focused on taking that land. I think it's one of the reasons why they're heavily invested in normalization with the especially and particularly the Gulf states, but and even Netanyahu himself. He featured out a map of what they called the New Middle East, which showed no territory of Palestine whatsoever, and all of these so-called allied states, which basically was all the states that was part of the Great Israel Project. And not only do they still have, like, not only is it just with little events like that, but there was a event where they featured a plaque for the terrorist organization Irgun, which, as I said, their logo is literally the map of Greater Israel with a hand holding a gun. He celebrated with the rest of the Zionists at that event. They unveiled the plaque and they clapped to it, recognizing and acknowledging what is their terrorist history, their terrorist founders.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, it just goes to show it's a greater Zionist project. It's a colonial project, and they see themselves. I mean, if even if you know the even if you know the basic even if you know the smallest thing about colonialism, you know that it's kind of it's kind of like a cancer. It's kind of like capitalism. It just grows and grows and grows. Its whole point is to consume. Um, it sees no end. It just wants to develop markets and stuff just for the sake of it, because it feels it's entitled to that land, that area, when it's like, no, dude, like this, you can live and let live. Like, you do not have to go after these people. You do not have to go after this land. Like, by doing so, you're just creating problems for yourself in the future. Like, you can coexist, but your political ideology doesn't allow you to. So and then you cry whenever someone smacks you over the head in retaliation for what's justifiably an illegal occupation. um, so yeah, I have no sympathy for that, and neither should anyone else. And the only reason people support it is because it either they don't know any better, which at this point, again, malicious, um, or it serves their interests politically and economically. In which case, fuck those people.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think we've said all we're gonna say about that. As always, folks, free Palestine, and we if you find or know ways to donate, donate. Um, if there's anything you could do to spread the word, go to protests or anything like that, you know, be the voice for the Palestinian people that they can't be right now. They're being hushed. So many pro-Palestinian voices are being hushed right now. It's apparent all through social media, Facebook and Instagram, doing the most right now for that. Um, and I sometimes joke that my internet connection is also doing that. But all my bills are paid up, so there shouldn't be any slowdown on that bit. But yeah, we encourage you to educate yourselves, do the most, and exercise your empathy through solidarity, as always.
By the way, I just got my Afghanistan flag. Not the Taliban one, but I am getting the Taliban one later on. I don't support the Taliban, but like it's a cool ass flag, so I like to collect.
I'm kind of mixed on it because it's not a predominantly far right proxy group as it used to be. They're kind of mixed. They're infighting a lot because of certain policies that older members of the Taliban are fighting with the newer, younger members.
But yeah, I think this is the time to switch the topic to I believe is Marxism and the leftists. So I want to start out with some very specific. The race reductionist.
Oh shit!
What is the race reductionist? So when we bring up class and class struggle,
I see
we're,
what you did.
we're called the class reductionists because we simplify. We simplify. Look, we simplify the productive forces and the relationships of productions. We simplify how economically, how socially people interact voluntarily or involuntarily. That involves both race gender, all that good stuff. And yet
Mhm.
we are the ones that are simplifying it by looking at it through a uh, class based system. Well, this is why I call them the race reductionists. Can only explain the world through race. You know, the every white man is fucking racist. It's fucking every white man is fucking it has systematically in them racism. You know, uh, race is a symptom of capitalism. It is a symptom. I call this with the feminists too, the feminist reductionists. You know, they all try to simplify something that came from Marx and came from class analysis. And now we have all these new leftist Marxists, wannabe Marxists that look at the world through that lens. And unfortunately, are not getting the complete economical, social, and political uh, analysis of how we interact in a society. So yeah,
I want to
yeah.
jump. I want to jump. This is something I enjoy. All right. So the first off, I like what you did. That's funny. But the thing with what is the new age left, the new left, or the more properly referred to a new term, which is synthetic left, the fake left. We see a left that is heavily, just like the anarchists, heavily co-opted by the liberal movements, the liberal establishments. These are so-called leftists who are 1 minute, burn it all down, death to capitalism, I hate the United States. And then the next minute, they are adopting the exact same anti-communist talking points, especially if they are of the anarchist circles, as the liberal institutions and the bourgeois institutions as a whole. And then they are adopting the same identity politics of the liberal institutions as well. One of the biggest and the most disastrous things that has came out of the new left was identity politics, and it was heavily increased. If you look at the statistics for headlines that talked about racism and sexism, you will notice that they skyrocketed right after the 2008 financial crisis. Well, what happened during the 2008 financial crisis? Occupy. One of the biggest groups that was the most active in Occupy was the left. It was members of anarchist formations, socialist formations, communist formations. Granted, the communists could have done significantly more, but either way. Shortly after that, the next thing you know, every single mainstream media agency, be them centrally like mainly focused online, on TV, newspapers, magazines, they all just start pumping out just piece after piece about racial discrimination, about sexism, about this, that, the other. And yes, that's not to say that those forms of discrimination don't exist. Of course they do, but they are not the sole dominating relation of human history or human civilizations. They aren't. No one can say that they are, because if they say that, then they're ignoring the predominant and the most prevailing, which is the economic relations. This is the reality of what we are fighting and what we have been fighting for years now, which is the concept of identity politics. Most of the left are still somewhat tied, if not still deeply tied, to these liberal think tanks that make themselves look like they are left leaning in some sorts, and that's also largely because our prevailing society has marketed certain media agencies as far left or left leaning, when really they're not. They're liberals. They're the more progressive form of liberals, which is also why I'm not surprised that social democrats exist. in such a wide variety.
Like
Yeah, and
DSA.
go ahead.
No, I was just saying what he said. Social Democrats like the DSA.
Yeah, and for anybody who might be listening, that is to say, we understand and we understand and we recognize that, like, again, like we saying, racism, sexism, these are all symptoms of capitalism. These are just different. They're kind of like subsections of um, symptoms of a greater plague, right? That plague being capitalism. That's not to say, like, we know that for every hardship, for every class struggle, there are people or groups within that class who experience it to a greater degree or affected by a greater degree, based on their skin color, based on their sexuality, their gender expression, all the many facets that make up their personality, right? That's not to say they don't exist. And I think what I think what we're making the distinction with here is that the reduction, the people doing the reducing, are those who are really, it's in some parts might even be a misnomer. It's like they're not going far enough to label what the real problem is, because when you're a liberal, and this was back, in my liberal days, the only way I could fathom, or that you were like taught to think or fathom, like how a problem comes to be or what the source is for a certain problem, um, can be, can only be dumbed down to, or filtered into one of maybe 10 or 15 different, different types of isms, right? Sexism, colorism, racism, whatever. Uh, but a lot of the times it's like, yes, those things are definitely happening. But what is it also caused by? A lot, there's, racism against immigrants or anti-immigrant sentiments, um, is often the result of, like, uh, is often the result of one, being afraid that you're going to lose your job to an immigrant. Why? That's because it's beneficial for them for the property owners and those who own the means of production to scare you into thinking these people who don't speak any English, who don't have many, contacts in here. We're going to end up. They know that they're going to be ending up using them, exploiting these people for the cheap labor they produce, because they can literally, like, hire them as quickly as they can fire them, and vice versa. So the workers know this, and they think, well, I don't want those people coming in here, working my job for the less money and kicking me off the line. And basically, it's they're redirecting your anger from where it should go, the property owner, the boss, the manager, the CEO, to the group that has little to do with that situation. Like, it wouldn't it like, your boss is the one making the decision to fire you, not the immigrant. And so that's where, that's leftism 101 there. Like, direct your anger to where it should go. The billionaires and the middle and the millionaires pitting the working class against each other.
Let me let me add to that. By the way, I'm gonna say this, right. If I was a multi-millionaire, multi-billionaire corporate owner, right, and I was profiting heavily from capitalism, and I saw in 2008 a bunch of people were, obviously correctly, pointing out capitalism as the faults for the financial crisis, and calling out the greedy, over profiting, mega wealthy corporations. Right? I would not do what other nations would probably do, which would radically anger them even more, such as sending the police to beat them down until they finally give up. Which, I mean, as we've seen from history, that never works. No, distract them completely, center them away from the idea of I'm the enemy. I'm the the wealthy person is the enemy. No, no, no. Direct their fighting in between themselves. This is one of the known tactics throughout every single civilization. It's why every single empire that has existed for very long periods of time usually they adopted this tactic, is directing the anger between themselves, because and I mean it's very obvious just what the phrase that the Americans know well, the united we stand and divided we fall. It's the same concept. When you can direct the people, the masses of the country, from focusing on their financial burdens and correctly pointing out who is the one that actually has the control over those financial burdens, to saying such and such is gonna steal my job, such and such is making more money than me because he's a man, or whatever it be. The bourgeoisie, the capitalist class, yes, they do have many traits and characteristics of racism and sexism and the like. Yes, this is very true. But that still doesn't stop them from shaking hands behind closed doors with those very people that they don't have a favoring to, or that they have a discrimination towards. The same individuals who will rant on about Muslims being evil and this, that, the other, they will shake hands with these same entities in global trade. They will the same thing when it comes down to women who are in positions of extreme power. Do you think Beyonce has any kind of major issues of sexism when she's making millions upon millions and exploiting other women across seas? This is not something that is the over prevailing oppression. It's not. And anyone who says that is still poisoned with the new age leftists, or really just red liberal philosophy. The overarching oppression that contributes to all of them, mainly because it's a weaponized tactic to keep the masses from unifying. It's class. It's capitalism. It's the main prevailing oppression is class contradictions. The one class over the other. And honestly, and this is what I also hate about the modern left. These are the same individuals who will love and show support and show praise for individuals such as the leaders of the Black Panthers, and then completely just ignore what the Black Panthers was teaching in their own works, in their own classes, in their organizing when they were creating the Rainbow Coalition. This is the type of backwardness and especially arrogance, because it's not even ignorance at this point. It's not like they don't know. They do know about it. They're just arrogantly cherry picking and screaming that they're correct and their new age understanding of things is more correct than the former.
Yeah. It's almost like enlightened centrism.
It's dogmatism.
Yeah.
So I think we're getting around the 1 hour mark.
Oh, we've gone past the 1 hour mark.
Oh, we did?
Yep.
All right. So I think we all said what we needed to say about it. The only thing I would add, is that yes, it comes from radical liberalism. All these concepts of like, you're a class reductionist, stuff like that. And it also comes from anarchism, which is another form of liberalism, just to the radical sense.
It's backwards liberalism, as Lenin put it.
It's backwards liberalism. We can all say that we've been there, but we started actually reading books, and we got to where we at right now. So with that being said, I'm gonna pass the mic over to Islamic Socialist. He's gonna explain what happened to him with the situation that he's going through right now.
So, without giving too many details, I am going to just quite simply say that this is either one, discrimination, the discriminatory targeting that is happening against me, or this is a setup that is being placed against me because of my connections and my history involved with the communist movement and the work that I have committed for the communist movement. I have had the issue of a local law enforcement trying to put me in a bind, which could essentially get me into legal trouble, such as marking a court date for a violation during the weekend. And what's worse is pulling up that court case number. It does not exist in the region that it's applied to. So, with that stated, I have great suspicion and great worry that either one, things will go accordingly and this will be handled properly and nothing will happen, or two, they're going to try to find some kind of way, even if they have to make up one, to lock me away.
So I'm not really going to comment on this issue because privacy issues. I'm well known aware of what's going on. I can say it's really shady. Like it's really shady. Like I mean, it does not make sense at all. Like what is happening, and well, it make sense if you go to that route that they're trying to do some um, to Islamic socialists. But I would say we are going to try to fix this as soon as possible. Jerem, I don't know if you want to add anything. Just don't give out any information about the thing.
Okay. Wait, do you need me to go?
No, if you want to,
He
you
was-
don't have to. I'm just asking.
He was saying if you wanted to add anything, just don't say anything that could potentially be identifiable.
Oh yeah. No, it's I think it's I made a comment earlier while we were going over this that either this was this was either she intentionally wrote the wrong date, and so it can most likely be dismissed, or this person was like you said, which is the more likely thing. The officer did this to fuck with you, and either way, it's a waste of everyone's time and taxpayer money, to come after you when you were just chilling. So, but what can I say, man? It's the state collecting its money. That's the same dumb shit every day.
Yeah, very true. So we were going to talk about Avatar, but I think this is enough time that we've been on here. We are going to talk about Avatar whenever we do the second podcast for this. I don't know how this is going to work because we do other podcasts as well. So we're getting the groove of it. But it was, thank you all for coming. It's Islamic Socialist, Marxist Hoodlum, and Drem. And I hope you all have a fine, good evening, or day, or afternoon.
Wherever this finds you, be well and free Palestine.
Free Palestine.